Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this Monroe County Election Board Working Group. For the record, I'm John Fernandez, Chair of the Monroe County Election Board. I thought maybe before we dive in, I'd just kind of frame up what we're trying to do, why we're here. As folks who follow this might recall, earlier in the year, Clerk Brown had rightfully so discussed options for how we could improve the election day reporting to make the results transparent, easily accessible to folks who are tracking the elections. I think everybody agreed that the status quo in terms of how we do election day reporting was somewhat antiquated, and that in this day and age we could probably do better. We did look at a proposal specifically from a third-party contractor called Ann Island. The Monroe County Election Board unanimously rejected a proposal to contract with that company, and in the alternative, directed us to work with Monroe County GIS to see if there was an alternative that we could do in-house for substantially less money, and frankly to actually deliver a better product in terms of the layers of detail. And so this election board working group was created. Over the last couple of weeks, the Monroe County GIS team has been working on a framework, a platform that could accept the data on election day and create these data visualizations on a regular basis throughout the night. And so today what we wanted to do was look at where we're at in terms of the platform development. I'll let John from the GIS department provide a little bit more detail on the process that's led us to what we're going to do today, which is a little demonstration on the current platform so that we can determine whether or not we're ready to turn that loose on November 5th. If folks have been tracking the early voting dashboard, that was also developed by this team, and you know, from where I'm sitting, I think it's been really helpful. The information is pretty robust, and it gives us some context of what we might be able to do differently and better, frankly, on the election day reporting. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to John.
Cool, thanks, John. Let's see, is the camera, and I'm going to share my screen as well. So TSD, if I can share my screen, we will see. Boom. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm John Baton, GIS coordinator for Monroe County. This is a really exciting opportunity for the GIS division and for the surveyor's office in general. My background is mapping social data. That's what I've been doing for decades. What GIS is just for folks to kind of have a grasp of the kind of technology. It's essentially tabular data that's giving a geography to it, right? And so election data that we receive from voter registration and from Hart InterCivic is tabular data as well, a CSV file essentially. I've been able to retrieve that information from Bob White, who runs, I forget the company, but he's the main kind of proprietor who's helping voter reg. So I've been able to receive a CSV in a native form and able to integrate that into the GIS fairly seamlessly. It was pretty exciting to do. So what I've done is I've come up with two different kind of interfaces for election result reporting. One of them is at a precinct scale, and the other one's at a cumulative scale. So the precinct scale will be showing every race per precinct, or every race at every precinct. And then the cumulative scale will just be showing kind of what total votes were for Monroe County, right? There's two kind of different ways to kind of think about this in terms of how we want to showcase information. What I have to show today are two different examples. One of them is real data from the 2022 general election at the precinct scale and then at the cumulative scale. And then the other one is fake data for the 2024. What I mean by fake data is that I have the CSV, but then for the total votes, I did a randomization. So it's a quick thing in Excel that populates numbers. The data for this is tabular. It's complicated, but it's not that complicated. I was mentioning to Dave Askins just earlier about what the data looks like. And so we have 83 precincts in Monroe County, including one additional, I'm going to call it a precinct, which is the federal ballots that come in. For every precinct, in terms of the tabular data, you have every single individual or answer for a measure that appears on the ballot. So this includes all of the people who are officially on it, as well as all of the official write-in candidates. So for Bean Blossom 1, for instance, instead of there being one row of data, there's around 100, right? So there's a lot of information that's kind of being compiled here. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a data dashboard showcasing the 2022 official election results for Monroe County. The way that this dashboard works is that you have a sidebar, which is over here on the left, that says select a precinct. Then you have the elected office contest and the results for ballot measures. You have the precinct map in the middle, and then you have some data indicators that are going to generate as we kind of provide and produce data. And so what I'll do is just kind of showcase or show how this works. And so I'm going to select a precinct. I'm going to go down here. I'm just going to pick Perry 1, and the map will zoom into it. Immediately when you zoom into Perry 1, what it's going to be pulling is the registered voters for Perry 1, as well as the total ballots that were cast for Perry 1. So you get that, as well as the turnout percentage that went on for that individual precinct. Now from here, what I'm going to do is try to check out a elected office contest. And so we'll just go with, I'm just trying to pick one that's going to have some competition. So Secretary of State. And when I click this, you're going to get the total values for everybody that ran for Secretary of State. So you can see Destiny Wells had 325 votes, Diego Morales had 55, and Jeffrey Maurer had 21. I'm only pulling within this is called a serial chart or bar chart here, people who have a party affiliation. So write-in candidates aren't showing up in this. They do show up in the list, and so you can see that there were, for countywide, which is the table next to it, you can see that Destiny Wells got 25,000 votes. There were 17 unassigned write-ins, and somebody named David Wetterer received 11. The reason for kind of limiting the data in the serial chart, and this is all modifiable and we can change whatever we want here for visualization and transparency. The reason for kind of limiting the numbers in the serial chart is just for clarity of the product, right? You don't want to have a ton of information that gets just kind of clunky. So this is essentially how this dashboard works. You can flip from Secretary of State to Treasurer of State, and the information is going to be shifting as well. United States Senator, for instance. And you can always reset this and go to a ballot measure if you'd like as well. And we'll see if, I'll reset that one. I'm going to go back up and reset Perry 1. We can do like Bloomington 9, and the same types of things can work out here. There might be some hiccups still occurring with this one. It looks like that does not want to pull up the ballot measures for the appeals right now. Here's the auditor again. And so this is what it looks like at that precinct scale. I mentioned that this is also, one last thing too, you have the data dashboard on the top right, so it's at a precinct level. You can also see what it looks like at a county level. These numbers right now, again, like I mentioned that there are not 5.8 million registered voters in Monroe County. What this is doing, it's pulling a sum for all rows of data within that CSV. And so right now I'm working on a data expression that will limit it just to the top row of data. And the ballots cast here is going to be a bad number as well. So this is what that precinct level looks like. We also have part of the CSV shows precincts that are reporting, and that in the tabular data shows up as either reporting or not reporting. And so what I'd like to do, and this is doable as well, is to have a gauge or have some type of indicator that's showing what is the percent or what are the numbers of precincts that have reported as we get these data dumps throughout the night, and then also have a list of outstanding precincts that are yet to report to the elections office. So this is the precinct scale data dashboard. And then I said there's also a cumulative one as well. This is what the cumulative kind of looks like. So we have, and again, this is for 2022, we have the total registered voters, total ballots cast, and then we have just contests. And so we can click on one of these. Benton Township Board, and you'll see the individuals that ran here. This serial chart right now, I have it configured again that it's only pulling people with elected or with parties. So when we go to an auditor of state, you'll get some better numbers there. Again, this is all adjustable and modifiable. The issue with the 2022 data, I was making this yesterday, is that the amount of candidates on the 2022 general ballot was extreme versus the 2024. You had all of the township people, and so I was going through every single individual and trying to color code their names by their parties, and I realized that trick-or-treating was happening, and I had to get home and do that. I prioritize some stuff here. But Secretary of State, again, for instance, we have all of the choices here that receive votes, and then you also get the Wells and Morales. Now, I'm under the, I'm very aware that the majority of people who are going to be accessing these data will not be doing it on a desktop computer. The majority are going to be using their phones for this. And so what I have here is a QR code that you guys can scan if you have a phone, and you can look at what this dashboard looks like on a mobile device. I feel like it's pretty slick in terms of how it's turned out. Again, this is something that we've been able to limit, and if you have utilized the early election dashboard, you'll notice that that one also is a mobile-friendly interface. I do want to hope that everybody's able to access this. Have folks been able to get into it? Okay, cool.
Well, to that last viz, right? So does that just direct you right to the serial and not the map?
This is going to direct you to that cumulative one.
Okay.
Yeah, but we could do the same thing for the precinct map as well.
Right, that's what
David,
that's what I say. Yeah.
The 2024 ballot, I don't want to say it's smaller than the 2022 in terms of the candidates, and so our ability to kind of produce visualizations for it, I don't want to say it's easier, but there's less data, right? And less data sometimes is easier to kind of produce a visualization for.
So it gives you the numbers, but on the mobile right now, it does. Precincts reporting. Well, I guess this is because it's all of them, yeah.
Yeah, we could add that that data though, John, for this. It would just be another, if you're looking where it says like list of contests, we could have it embedded in there that would say, you know, precincts reporting or a list of precincts that are outstanding. And like I said, this is all modifiable. So any suggestions that folks have, you know, I'm all ears for it. I did play with an idea of having a pie chart showing a distribution of, you know, if there's 100 or 100 votes, whatever distribution of political party for race, but it kind of was a little bit clunky as well, or contest. And so what I've done is essentially taken this, I'm going to call it architecture for these dashboards, and built it out for the 2024 as well. I'll give you just kind of a brief overview of the process of entering data into this interface at the precinct scale. My concern originally was that the dashboards would be disrupted or broken as new data came in. Often that's what happens when you're bringing data into an interface, is that the schema changes somewhat, and so you have to reconfigure all of the widgets that are going in there, which would really suck on election day for me and everybody else just trying to like modify stuff. We don't have to do that, and so what we have is a seamless, essentially, integration of that new data. I would receive the CSV from voter registration, I'm assuming on a thumb drive. I guess an email would work as well, but I'm guessing a thumb drive's probably the way it would go. I bring it back to my office, I open up the CSV, I copy all of the lines of data with the exception of the headers, and then I paste it into my database, and it's within, I snap my fingers, it's not that fast. Within a minute, max, that data is going to be updated and live in the dashboard. And so it's pretty slick, and it's a pretty awesome realization on our end in the GIS division that this was doable, and that was through our technician Irina Valentin-Bolin really helped kind of architect that. It's using Power Automate with Excel, and it's just a great tool.
Oh, let's look at that.
That interface,
No, the
2024.
yes.
The interface of the Excel thing I have at I don't think it's on this computer, but it's basically a copy and paste, and I'm happy to kind of showcase that sometime as well. But we have the 2024 again. This is fake data here. So it's precinct level fake data. Again, this is essentially randomizing information. It's going to be the same interface we've seen before. So Bloomington 4, we can go elected offices. I'm going to pick on county council here because we have county council. So we have the, for Bloomington 4, we have Cheryl Munson, David Henry, and Trent Deckard. But you can see the total county-wide we have from the randomized data. An unaffiliated write-in candidate had the most votes from this random selection here. We can do county coroner. We're going to get Jeff Hall, president and vice president again. So same kind of interface. You can see for the president, Bloomington or Monroe County decided to elect Tom Heffeling. I'm saying that in jest because I'm guessing that's not going to occur.
So if you pause there, John, so then
Yeah.
Tell me about the registered voter. I guess you don't have any data there just because it's dummy data.
Yeah, and we do have data as of yesterday. It's like 95,700 something. And so that information would be showing up there. The issue right now with the registered voters and the ballots cast is that I'm working on a data expression right now, and I mentioned it earlier that for every line of data, there's, I'll say 9,000 lines of data here. It has the total registered voters within Monroe County. And so you're going to have whatever 95,000 times 9,000 is showing up, which is a mega city, which is not true. And so what I'm doing is trying to isolate that information for ballots cast as well. There's a thing with ballots cast, and I was trying to explain this to some folks, that ballots cast are different than total votes, right? And everybody here understands that, but it's an important thing to keep in mind. And so that data is all in the CSV. Turnout percentages in the CSV as well, and then that precinct reporting would be showing up here too. And so it's basically whatever types of indicators that are in the, or whatever types of data that are in the CSV, we can visualize and present. And this information as well is available at that cumulative stage too, right? For this though, it's just essentially removing the map from the data. We could always include the map, but if we're talking about a cumulative example, it's just a map of Monroe County, which doesn't really tell us a whole lot. I do think from my experience of data research that the precinct level data, I find it easier to digest on a desktop view than I do in a mobile application, just because it gives you have a bigger screen to look at things. So we're kind of thinking about what's the best way to present data in different interfaces. And if we're talking about a mobile phone, right, you only have limited space you can work with. And so it's trying to, really maximize that small space.
Anybody have any questions, comments for John?
Yeah, a few things. This is great. Thanks for the work on this. It just opens up so many possibilities beyond what you've even done here. And I know there's a lot of hard work behind this dashboard with getting all these elements configured and what you're doing here. This is really great. I do have some maybe things that if we go with this route probably need to happen for Tuesday, and then there's probably things that are refinements later that we just don't have time for, right? So I think the big question I've got here is either a disclaimer in the top bar or the splash screen as you log in, like the pop-up, that would disclaim that these are the unofficial results, like just to be absolutely clear what we're staring at is unofficial cumulative. The black bar has it, but then this viz, is this scrolled up the whole way?
I'm sorry, David?
Is this scrolled up the whole way?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so like that would definitely be like we need the bar across the top, or there needs to be the splash screen.
For sure.
I mean, it's annoying, but I would be almost okay with saying every time you change a page, that splash pops up, so you know this is the unofficial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to others? Yeah. So there's that.
And we want to highlight as well that it's, reference only, right? These are unofficial,
Yeah.
and this is,
Yeah. So that's I think that makes sense there. So the write-ins, if there were variations in the data, like if you had, Joe Smith, Joseph Smith, Joey Smith, like does that show up in the tab?
So there's the way that I understand, and I'll let Kylie interject here, the way I understand that it shows up from the data that I've seen in terms of the 2022 data, which actually has real data in it, you have the write-in candidates that are verified, but then, so they actually have the names, right? For instance, like Cornel West is running for president this year, so he's showing up as a verifiable write-in candidate. So you have all of those, but then there's a column essentially that's called verified write-ins, rejected, verified candidates, and then there's unverified candidates, unverified write-in candidates. There's two different columns, and I think for your question, if it's a Joe Smith or Joey Smith type of thing, I think it would show up as probably an unverified. When I did the random data dump, the unverified had, for some reason, like 7,000, and so I removed it from the dashboard because I don't want that showing up. But that's there, but it's not actually listed out by name, is the way I understand. But I'll let you kind of respond, Kylie, if you know.
On that, so the election board that night goes in and will have to adjudicate each individual write-in, and then they will have to select whether they believe that it matches the name of a verified candidate or if it does not meet the qualifications.
We've never reported out the unverified.
No.
So yeah, because I would hate to, it'd be entertaining, but you'd have a long list of Donald Duck in there,
Right.
And that might dirty the data. So it sounds like there's a process for assuring that the verified candidate's name would appear, but unverified names wouldn't, and dirty the data. All right.
Right.
Okay. That's just kind of something that jumped out at me.
Oh, actually,
Go ahead.
Just
Yeah.
because I have it on the screen right now, and if you look at the bottom of this for the choice for, Secretary of State, we have Wetterer, Wells, Morales, Maurer, but then we have the rejected write-ins, and then we have the unassigned write-ins. And so I'm guessing it gets looped into one of those things. And we could limit any of these data to only show individuals that received 25 votes or more, if we wanted that. But I think for data transparency, why not just include everything?
Yeah, if anything, the unverified as an aggregate might be interesting, but to have, I don't know, this is really granular, but it is data, it is in the system, right? It might be interesting to see just the aggregate of unverified, but not by name what they are, because you could have profanity in there, you could have all sorts of stuff, yeah. Okay, another random thought is, so for the overseas and POTUS only ballots, how are those rendered in here? Like, because if they are precinct-less, I guess, or if it's a POTUS only because they have the right to vote for president.
Sure, yeah. So what I did for the 2024 one, the challenge with this is that we have 83 precincts in Monroe County. There were also 83 precincts that were tabulated as like Perry 01-NR, and I believe that's non-resident. And then there's also a precinct that's called Bloom Federal. And so what I did for the Bloom Federal one was I essentially took the spatial boundary of Monroe County and added it to the precinct data, or the precinct layer. So we have 83 geometries for our precincts, and then we have one broad geometry for Monroe County. And so I was feeding all of those Bloom Federal, the overseas presidential Senate race ballots into that kind of broader Monroe County one.
You have that in here?
I believe so. Don't quote me on that.
That's okay, yeah. Because I'm asking only because is it something that's obvious that it's that versus a aggregate county count of, so the other way to see that would be to click it and say, oh gosh, like there were only 30 votes for, Harris or whatever, that someone wouldn't make the mistake in thinking that is the aggregate for the county and not.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think, right here. So this is 2022. And again, I built this yesterday, so.
I'm putting you through the ropes here, sorry.
Okay, so here's Bloom Federal. We'll go to elected office. We're just going to say United States Senator. Okay, yeah, so here's the, there was 110 federal people at that Bloomington federal scale that voted for McDermott and 3 for Young. So this would be the overseas ballots in 2022 for that case.
Is that clear to other people? I mean, I know we're in the weeds here, but like, do you think Joe Citizen looks at that and can deduce that that's not the entirety of the federal votes?
We could, in terms of the name that shows up on the precinct, instead of Bloom Federal, this could be overseas, Monroe County overseas voters. This is all stuff that we can change and modify kind of how we see fit. I do think that that makes a lot more sense. And just so I don't forget about this either, there was another concern that I had that arose when I was looking at the data that was generated from Hart InterCivic, and one of those were the straight party tickets. And my concern for this was that if people voted straight party, were those numbers automatically being assigned to every individual on the ballot? So if somebody voted straight party libertarian, would those votes go to all of the libertarian candidates? And they said that they were going into those already. My worry was that we would have to then type those in afterwards, or do some type of an algorithm that we'd be adding all the straight party votes. My concern here is data transparency, but then also accuracy. Well, I should say my concern here is accuracy and transparency. They're both even planes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So I think those are my day of concerns. Like if those tweaks are in there, I feel really great about what I'm looking at. This is great visualization. It's a good, using the investment of the county in a robust way that's just been sitting here. So I appreciate everything behind the scenes. Again, I've done my share of this work before, so I can see what you did here. Sorry to put you through the ringer. Here's the kind of refinement after Election Day, or I'm kind of curious what other people think. If there's value in heat mapping any of this, either to, for me as a partisan, having a heat map of party turnout by precinct might be interesting. How hard is that to flip on a layer of heat mapping to show what's blue and what's red here based on intensity of turnout and the precincts?
It's not hard. It's not hard at all. And so there's heat mapping, which I think works really good for point data. Like data would be at a polling location or something like that. But then we also have what's called a choropleth map, which is using color or size to symbolize kind of density or quantities of things. And so I built out a heat map for the 2024 primary, only pulling in winners from 3 different races. And it was the primary elections are more difficult, and this is before I had access to the CSV as well. So I was doing this all manual data entry, and it's very easy to do. In this data, we already have Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, right? And so we would just be saying, show a ratio of Democrat to Republican to Libertarian votes if you want. The one issue with that is, well, I shouldn't say it's an issue, it's just something to be aware of for all mapping, is that maps, and especially maps that contain social data, can be used to lie, essentially. I don't want to say lie, but they can be used to kind of convey a message that maybe isn't 100% accurate. This is used often for crime statistics and people showing that, in this inner city, there's tons of crime compared to the suburbs. And it's like, well, maybe, but there's also a lot of policing that happens there, right? What I'm getting at here is that when we did the ratio map of Democrat to Republican voting, it was a very expected result of the center of Bloomington being blue. As we moved out to the kind of Monroe County at large, it became more red and purple, except for one precinct in Bloomington, which was Bloomington 1, was this red island in the middle of Bloomington. And the reason for that is you had 1,000 some registered voters, but only 3 people voted, and 2 of those voted for Nikki Haley. So it showed up as this Republican haven within the downtown Bloomington, right? And so there's ways that we can offset this. It's just we would have to do something with the classification of data and things like that.
Well, that's why this might be refinement. And also, I'll just say, even though I think that's really awesome, it also might not be a requirement of government to provide that information, So because what you've otherwise done is visualized the obligation of the election board to report the results. This stuff is just interesting, what the tool can do. I know that was probably exhausting, John. I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to really get into it. This is really good. I guess my overall, because the agenda today was either with the 3 options. I feel like if this is exclusively the tool, and the process we're going to use for this. The hybrid approach would be fine with me, I think, because we'd still get a PDF email just to have that hard copy like we always have. And then this would also be going on where the county has secured the data. We all feel, both parties, hopefully the Republicans agree here, that what we're seeing here has been blessed as the way we want to see this coming out of the county through a county-owned system. I would be okay with going with the hybrid approach, so long, and really the caveat being that we, and we've already beat it to death, is this idea that we have to have the disclaimer on there and just every time. If that's the case, I'm okay with it. But I do want to just assure that this is exclusively the process, that we won't have a third-party pass around of data that shows up in other systems. Like, I wouldn't want to put out my own visualization as a party. I'd want to point people to this. Does that make sense? So I guess what I'm really saying is, are the files that are being distributed just the PDFs over email and then just us getting links to this? There's no other data being pushed out of the county by request?
There would be CSV requests that come in from the VRG 24s. We've already received requests from newspapers and from media sources that want CSVs.
So do we have a tabulation of those organizations that have asked for CSVs through the VRG process?
We have all of the VRGs in our office that will be held with all of our data that we keep.
Do you have a list of those organizations that have asked for that?
I believe Click Brown does.
And I could ask for it too, obviously. And just remind me, can a non-county resident request a VRG file from Monroe County? Okay. And is it on behalf of an organization or an individual asking for it?
It can be individual or it can be on behalf of an organization.
So an individual, a non-Monroe County resident individual could request a Monroe County data set file day of?
Correct.
Right. Now, is this the results only?
Yes.
Are there any requests that are multiple times during the day for that information?
We do have some that have asked for multiple times throughout the day. I believe, I don't have the names currently. It's an email that was sent to us that asked if they could receive data 3 times throughout the day, and it's in the morning, in the middle of the day, and then at the afternoon.
Chances are that's the Indiana Democratic Party or
I believe
the Indiana
so.
Republican Party, because both parties have requested that.
Let's be clear, there's two different things you're talking about. So that request is for turnout data, not election results.
Right.
That's the VRG.
The VRG is both of those.
Sorry, say that again.
All computerized data, you have to fill out a VRG 24 to receive that. And then on that form, they will request specifically what they're wanting. So for like the turnout, somebody will say, we want turnout or a list of who has checked in throughout the day. And then if it's a CSV of results, then they'll say, I want a CSV of results. And then I do have one question for John, if that's okay, if I go ahead and ask real quick. So John, the only thing that I'm really concerned with is seeing that there are still a few errors within this. Are we, with us being less than a week away, specifically 4 days from Election Day, will it be completely ready on Election Day?
Yeah, I mean, like what errors?
So like with the 2.4 million ballots casted,
yeah.
and all of the numbers not completely adding up.
Correct, yeah. And so that will be, if those data are not automated, those are things that we can, if for the registered voters, we can just type that in and have it set. So these are things I'm not worried about at all. The process for this is essentially, it's above, I don't want to say it's above my pay grade. It's above my coding skills. And what you're doing is you're saying that for the column of registered voters, or the column of ballots cast, for instance, there should be just 84 rows of data for ballots cast, right? One row of data for each precinct. But instead, the way that the CSV is populating it, there's like, we'll say 150 rows for each of those. And so what you need to do is write a script that says, we want to group our data by ballots cast, but we just want to pick the top line or the max line, and then we're going to sum that. And so that's the process. If we could do pivot tables in this, that would be a very good workaround. but I'm not concerned about that. My concern that I had for this going into it at the precinct level, I always knew the county-wide I could do no matter what. That wasn't a challenge. It's 50 rows of data. If I'm typing that manually, it's not a big deal. But the precinct data I was concerned about until we figured out that Power Automate through Excel, and it made everything good. So yeah.
Even so, right, if there was a problem with one element on this map, you can hide that element. It doesn't, I mean, so like you can take that element off if it was a problem.
Totally.
So it doesn't, I mean, if that is a deal breaker, it's not really a deal breaker. You just mask that element and you continue with the rest of the data as the visualization.
With this current configuration, though, I mean, again, I think that the important stuff is to have the results and being able to know how many precincts have reported. And then is there a way to list which ones have reported or have not reported?
Yeah, and so the precinct reporting shows up for each precinct. It says reporting or not reporting, and so we would just do a filter of list all not reporting. Again, it's the same issue with the ballots cast, is that you might end up with, right now it'd be if Bean Blossom 1 hadn't reported yet, it would be showing 83 instances or 100 instances of Bean Blossom 1. So we just want to limit it to just one. But those are ways, that's this kind of data expression I'm working on.
So then from a process perspective, I mean, the way that the clerk did this in previous elections is it every hour?
She would send every hour on total check-ins. For the results, it was always at the, once we started receiving them in at 6 o'clock, then every hour we would update with who has reported so far.
And so with a hybrid, you would simultaneously be sending a link to people that want the CVS?
The CSV, it would probably
CSV, sorry.
No, you're fine. The CSV, it would more than likely be just at the end of the night because of how large of a file it is to pull. And then having to try to pull that on top of a PDF in the process of having them coming in would be.
Well, then so for organizations that are trying to get live data and purporting to have access to live data, how are they getting that data?
In the past, it's always just been a PDF that we send to them.
And so giving our own folks probably a thumb drive or a link, but that's only for our own folks, not for other vendors?
No, so the flash drive would be just for GIS if that's what we decide to go with.
But my question is then, if other organizations are trying to do the same thing, how are they going to get the data?
If somebody requests for the VRG 24, we have to release it because it is a public request for the data.
And that includes the election results?
Yes.
Okay, well, you're confusing me because that's what I asked, and you said it was just going to be the one. So.
The flash drive would just be with GIS.
Oh, so how?
Everybody else, we normally just send at the end of the night email with the results. So the CSV would just be sent at the end of the night.
Let's just back up then. So I'll be real clear. I mean, I got a notice yesterday that one of our local organizations is claiming that they're going to use Ann Island to produce results throughout the night. So are you saying?
I'm not sure on the throughout the night. Ours is we're just going to pull one CSV at the end of the night and send it.
Okay. So that organization should not be saying that they're going to be doing live results throughout the night for Monroe County and encouraging people to download an app, because you're going to have a bunch of people downloading an app that's not going to have any data for Monroe County.
By the end of the night, it could if that organization has requested
That's not my question, Connie. I said throughout the night.
For me, no. I don't know anything about the organization that's doing this. I have not had communication with the organization either. I just get VRG 24 forms, and I have to release the data to them.
Right. But that's not the same thing as the big election night results dump.
With GIS, it would be the same. We would just be at the end of the night giving all the data.
I thought you said we were going to give them
A flash drive at the end of the night with all.
Why are we waiting to the end of the night?
where,
The whole point of this was to be able to improve the reporting throughout the night.
yeah, the results aren't generated until the end of the night. Once all of the reports have came in at that final one, that's when it's generated. The last view drive that comes in from all the polling locations, once that one has been put in and it has been tabulated, that's
That
when
doesn't
the
make any
results come
sense to
out.
me because we are producing results throughout the night and we're
The
doing it by a
PDF, correct.
PDF. And we were told by the vendor that that same process could deliver alternative forms of data output.
The CSV, but we don't have anybody that would be able to sit and just specifically be pulling CSVs throughout the night.
I mean, it's a pretty easy process to pull the CSV just because I was there with Bob White when he did it.
Yeah.
I was expecting to be getting like 3 data dumps or 4 data dumps as boxes, for a layman's term, came in, that CSV would be generated. It took, in terms of time, it took about 3 minutes to generate it, and the file is 1,000 kilobytes, so it's not huge. It's Excel.
But that's a zero file. It's a zero report. It doesn't have any actual data in it. It's just the zero report.
I mean, it was like it was the stuff that he was producing. It was, the way I understand it is that it has all of those results. I don't know why they would have a field that said reporting and not reporting in it if they
So
weren't.
for the 2022 results, those are already generated. So
Sure.
whenever we're bringing in the V drives during the night, we're having to put them in through 2 different processes. We have to go through the counting, and then we have to go through the tallying process.
So I have maybe a different experience having sat through a few cycles now as a board president and a party chair. John, I want to acknowledge your questions in the teams that are popping up. So I want to acknowledge folks that are there, but I want to maybe finish this thought or at least offer some perspective. So during the day, we do not have results in real time. Right.
No.
So all we really get is the voter check-in details that are an SVRS, and so the clerk is able to see that velocity on a dashboard, and the hourly email that she sends has been, at least to my understanding, her looking at that velocity dashboard and then reporting out a number, and usually it's something like, here's the total turnout to this hour, and then here are some interesting precincts that have like a surge or a lot of people there. That is the level of data that I've ever gotten, hour by hour, of like, oh, it looks like university's got a big turnout or whatever. So that's a written email, not a PDF, not a CSV, and it's her looking at a screen and typing that email out and sending it to a pre-approved list of people that have requested to get that email. Those have typically been the stakeholders of the party, the media, and the candidates, all of which are stakeholders there, and at least the media has its own ethics and standards for integrity of how they're going to report that, right? If they make a mistake, they're going to turn around and correct it right away. Okay, so that was editorial. But anyway, every hour the email comes out, it's an email, that's the file, right? At the end of the day is when we start getting results that are unofficial. In the past, those have been a PDF printout from the machine.
Yep.
Right? And the first tranche is the cumulative absentees that have been tabulated at that point, and that comes pretty fast. Like it's usually first half hour after closing. And then there's a midpoint where you get the first, like the majority of the precincts in, and then we're waiting for the last ones that usually come about an hour and a half to 2 hours later. That's usually been the pattern. Those are PDF files that were, again, distributed to people that have asked to get that email through however that process is managed. And what is new this year is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that at 6 p.m., 6:45, whatever, that we're going to be getting a CSV file with that?
Yes.
Are we still getting the PDF file with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then depending on our decision, we might get a link to this dashboard.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 3 things, the 3 products. John, I think to your question, as I understand, and I want to be clear on this, like even if someone's filed a VRG to get data during the day, the best they're going to get is what? I mean,
If they file for a VRG for VRG 24 throughout the day is the list of who has checked in during the day.
but isn't the voter check-in details report, doesn't that contain PII that like would say by name David Henry voted today at? So are you saying that you've taken requests from people that are not, I'm just, who's getting the voter check-in details report?
Right now, Nicole has that list.
Okay, because the concern there is that that data, right, is why we had the debate about an island to begin with. It's like if there are names in that CSV file that's protected in personal information, I mean, you know, the process prior to all this discussion has been if the clerk desired to update the SVRS voter check-in file with the state so that the two parties could consume the data in their respective voter tabulation systems. I guess I really want to know who's asked for the voter check-in details report and whether or not that personally identifiable information actually can be released to people that are not, I guess, authorized to handle that. Like, I mean, if I, as a citizen, asked to know that's a heck of a lot of information.
The check-in list is the same information that is in the walking list.
What are those fields?
The fields is the name, their phone number, their address, and the date of their registration.
We would know, someone could ask for that file in real time and know at noon on election day that David Henry voted.
Yes.
And have we ever released that information before to public entities?
Yes.
Who are they?
I would have to pull up. We get emails from, Nicole Brown has gotten emails from individuals who have requested that they get this data, and so then they turn that data around so that they can pass it on to the party chairs, is what we've been informed.
So those would be state party officials.
Yes, and then if there is anybody else that has requested it, but I'm not sure everybody that has requested it, it's Nicole's list.
I think this is a question for county legal.
There's a question for that, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to dissect it in that way, but we were talking about different kinds of files, different kinds of granularity. No one's getting real-time election results during the day.
No.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Nope.
But there is something about that file with that data in it that I would want to just get a gut check from the lawyers to make sure that that's even shareable. I mean, it's one because, yeah, and I'm not going to belabor it. You know where I'm going with this. I mean, it's one thing to know a precinct has X amount of turnout generally. It's another thing to say, I know John voted at 3 o'clock, and that's now public. That could be plastered on a public-facing website. I don't think voters are aware that that data is available in that way.
So, like I said, it's the same as the walking list. It's essentially the same as a walking list. It's set up the same way. It has the list of everybody who has checked in, and that even it shows for early voting as well. So it'll just be a list. It'll also show ABS by mail who has submitted their ballots already. So it's generated the same way that a walking list is generated.
But the walking list, okay, but yeah, I hear what you're saying now. So the walking list is generated as a PDF file of barcodes, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a CSV file of manipulatable data, if that's a word this morning. Because what we're talking about is that if you get a voter check-in details report in a CSV format, once you have that, you can do all sorts of stuff to it.
Right, so the walking list, I believe, can be generated as a CSV as well. I would have to go back and look into SVRS.
Okay, well, that's also interesting, because I think every way we've ever gotten voter...
was just a PDF.
We've only ever gotten as PDF barcode.
Yeah, that's all that's ever been requested generally, but I would have to go back and look into SVRS because all of our reports have an option where you can select in SVRS how you want to export it.
I feel like this is a case of, and I'm sorry, I mean, we're doing this, so this is a working session, so I feel like this is a case of if you don't know how to ask for it, you don't get it that way, and now we're at a point where because of the recent few months of discussion about data, we're all having a realization that, in fact, there's many ways to get this information. It's just no one's bothered to ask that way before, but we don't have a menu waiting for somebody who's showing up to say, yeah, I want it in this format, in this manner. This feels a bit like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it there. But as a policy, it sounds like that has to be written out somewhere, which is like you can ask for this in many different ways, and here's your checklist, as opposed to, you really have to know the secret words to say to get the file in the right manner. Anyway, all right, I think I belabored that. But I have like a lot of questions for the attorney.
I do want to go to the questions that are online, but I do have one just point that I want to drill down on, because in our correspondence with Bob White, he said we can export data as a PDF, Excel, and CVS. So I'm just perplexed by this idea that we can't provide data to have a more up-to-date dashboard of results when you can do a PDF, but
When
you
are we
can't do
wanting-
data.
When are we wanting to start sending out the exports? Because I would have to find somebody specifically to sit down to do this by, like, that's the only thing they're doing.
But who's doing the PDF?
The PDF is me and Bob. We go into the back and we're putting in the V drives. We're waiting for it to generate. Then it prints out, and I'm taking those. Well, no, actually, we don't print them. We put them on a flash drive. I take them up and I can send them over to Nicole.
So how would it be more difficult to have a flash drive with the CVS data?
It's just the process of getting it to who it needs to get to, and also having to continue to bring in more results that are coming in through the door throughout the night. I would have to have one person specifically just sending out the data to everybody.
Well, as of right now, though, if I want that data, I got to bring in a unopened thumb drive. So are you telling me there are people that you expect to show up to election ops 3-4 times with unopened thumb drives to collect this data from you?
We have one person that has said that they're going to just come at the end of the night with an unopened flash drive that they want the CSV.
Yeah, so you're talking staff time now,
Yeah.
and how much demand all this is creating for just walking. Like, and I get that, you know, you've got a VRG, you have a public obligation there.
Yeah.
I mean, have you anticipated how much staff time is required to manage this task?
No, that's why I'm concerned with having to get it out multiple times throughout the night instead of just one time at the end of the night like we had originally planned for this election.
But to go back to the way we've always done it, it's. Yeah,
the
go ahead.
original.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's what was originally planned.
For this election, we were just doing one report at the end of the night.
My kind
That's
of
how it's always
That would have been
been.
a change, though, from previous cycles. We always got at least 3.
So that is what Nicole and Bob work on. Mine is completely different, which is what I take care of the VRG 24s. Nicole has her list of people that she sends emails to. I then have to send separate files at the end of the night to specific people who have requested a specific file.
my kind of understanding of, or my vision of how this was going to happen was that I would be walking from my office which is within the surveyor's office in the Showers building with a thumb drive at 7 o'clock or whatever, getting a data dump from Bob White, because I said it takes about 3 minutes. I'm sure he'd be fine with that. Going back to my office, plugging that data in, making sure everything looks good, hitting enter on it, waiting, another 45 minutes, another hour, going back, meeting up with Bob again, getting that data dump, and doing the same thing until, the elections are done. So I'm not sure what time that would be, but I was seeing this as like three transfers of information or something like that. That's why this interface is cool, is that it allows people to see this information kind of in a timely manner. And if the question is that the data isn't available, I think that would be something I'd be more than happy to get in touch with Hart about to make sure, like, if we get 35 precincts, at 6 o'clock or whatever, is that data available it's called it's a full report, essentially. Is that data available in the full report? I suspect it is, only because they have that reporting or not reporting for the precincts. And like I said, I don't think this is it's from the process I saw with what Bob did, it wasn't a big labor task. It was hitting 3 buttons on a computer, and then it comes out as a thumb drive. Yeah.
Sorry, Laura Wirt, Chief Deputy Clerk. Doing the data, we're not trying to argue, yes, you can have the data, that's great. It's the timing of everything, because I don't think many people understand the barely contained chaos that it is when people are coming in to voter registration, to return all the materials, to all this. And we have to make sure the ballots don't walk off. We have to make sure that the V drives don't walk off. We have to make sure that everybody is working towards that. And so when somebody comes in and says, ooh, I want this now, and it was like, wait, I'm in the middle of something else, you're gonna have to wait. I think that's the message we're trying to convey, is we have short staff, short time, and short sleep. So that combination. So, I mean, if we can do it not so many times throughout the night, maybe. What are your thoughts?
I'm just trying to, so it would be delegating a specific task to somebody specific, and there's only a select few people that know how to run the heart system in the back.
Correct.
It's trying to figure out who would be doing that, because I have Bob, who's taking care of all of the reporting, putting everything into the system back there. Then there's me, who has a million things that I'm responsible for that night.
Correct.
And then there is only one other person that knows how to use that system.
Right.
So, and that person's the one making sure all the ballots are getting scanned in.
So that's our struggle. It's not, we're not trying to withhold any information. We want to give it to you. We want to get it out to everyone. It's the fact of.
But I totally appreciate that, and I don't want to like do, recommend something that we can't do, but I'm just, and it may be me just being dumb, but if you have an option to download a PDF onto a thumb drive, I don't understand how it is more complex and labor intensive to download a CSV file to a thumb drive.
That's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the amount of times that we're going to be expected to do this. What we do is, once it slows down and there's not any money, or when there's not like a mass group of people coming in dropping off supplies, that's when we run that report. It's not necessarily exactly an hour in between. It's when we can get it done. And I don't want to say, yes, we'll get it to them every hour and then not be able to, because there's a situation that comes up in the office. Like, I know you were there for the primary, you seen where we had to stop 3 or 4 groups that had came in because they put materials in the wrong box or something.
Right.
So that's stopping the process of in the back. And I just don't want to say, yes, we're going to give it out 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, and then end up being, there's a 3-hour gap in between.
But I think in the statute, we are required to report on a regular basis, but that's a separate question. But I'm not saying you should do something different. I'm just saying, if you're going to be taking the time to put a PDF on a thumb drive, why can't you put the data on a thumb drive at the same time? And then you could do this kind of reporting as well, and that's more of that hybrid. So we're not picking one or the other. I'm not saying stop everything and do it on a different schedule, but if someone's physically putting the PDF on a thumb drive, why can't they also do?
That's what I'm saying. I just don't want to guarantee that it's going to be out every hour.
Earlier, you were saying that we don't have the time, we don't have the staff, we can't do this.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was going to be, we want it every hour, or we want it every 30 minutes, and so that it is extremely live. That I can't do. But what I can do would be like, okay, when we're running it for the PDF, we can run that CSV at the same time. I was worried that it's going to end up being, we want it every hour, or we want it every 30 minutes, and that's not guaranteed to happen.
No, I'm with you on that. Can we go to the questions on
Thanks, John.
online? I think we have Eric, or I guess it's number 1, I think, is, that's probably Tron, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to have followed along on that conversation. I was trying to stay up to date. I guess John Fernandez, since there's 2 Johns in the room, I'll use last names. I was kind of curious about that as well, because if we're able to produce a PDF and then simultaneously produce a CVS or CSV. Sorry.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Me too. I kind of like to say the full comma separated value, but that would be great. I don't think we're necessarily trying to increase the workload. So if they could be duplicated at the same time, that would be great. I also wanted to just mention that we weren't certain exactly how the data was going to be provided. So John has put in measures to report this data, even if we only received a PDF, but that's not the desired way that we want to do it. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up and just kind of make sure that everyone's aware that we have kind of built the foundation to try to do it with a PDF or have it more automated, which is what it seems like we can achieve. My thoughts on this is kind of the same way that these PDFs have been linked to like the B-Square Beacon, for instance, and, you know, following along, and every time that Voter Central was able to produce one, I think is the same kind of timeline we're trying to follow. So we're, I don't really want to speak out of line. You know, we've just kind of chatted about how this process may work. One other thing is I wanted to talk about the precinct level and then just kind of more the county-wide. I think we have the foundation for the county-wide like intact, and I think the precinct level is pretty good to go with a couple of those modifications. But I think the use case of that isn't necessarily looking at the night and seeing those results. I think the use case for like the precinct level is kind of, you know, really going to help for decision making along the line. So if for some reason we don't feel it's ready, you know, we can kind of bring that up and then kind of make sure, refine it, get it working well before it's released. But I think the county-wide data to know what's going on as those unofficial results are coming in, as John said, is we're there. We have that one kind of ready to go. So also, I just wanted to mention, you know, since the GIS division is in the surveyor's office, this is one reason I wanted to make sure that we had a working group to bring everyone in. So like, if there is any suggestions or recommendations of how they want the data to display, I don't want to lose focus on that part of the discussion either. So if anyone has thoughts after the meeting, please share them, because one of the goals here today was to get your feedback of how you want that data displayed.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Guess we can go to E. Oh, we have a hand up for, it looks like E.
It's Eric.
I think that's probably Eric. Can we allow unmute? There we go.
Yeah, thank you. My name's, I wasn't able to unmute my mic, but I am now. My name is Eric Ost, and thank you for allowing me to offer comment. I've been making some notes, and I won't go over all of them. I'd like to follow up with the group afterwards for some of these, but Ms. Turner King at a previous election board meeting had looked at Indiana Code 514 and indicated the election data and voter file data is public record. And so regardless of the format that it's provided in, whether it be PDF or CSV or Excel, it still is public record data. Mm-hmm. So I think, and given what I've learned in regards to, through this meeting and then also my own research, producing a CSV file is of no greater complexity. In fact, in many ways, it's lower complexity and provides more accurate transfer or conveyance of the results than a PDF. So I would advocate for provision of CSV format files in addition to PDF format files. In fact, a PDF format file can be transformed into a CSV format file or any other format that you wish. I can attest to that, and as well as the surveyor staff has just indicated that. So it sends us as a really marvelous step forward in terms of analysis of election results, and I really compliment everyone who's working on this for this movement forward. See, I'm going through my notes here. I'll try and be quick. In regards to file size, I believe it's already been indicated that the CSV file is very small. And my own experience with working with PDF and CSV format files, in particular election data, is the PDF format file is far larger. So and it's more accurate. It's a straight export from, I mean, for instance, in one election, the PDF format election results were, I believe, scanned, or printed and then scanned back in. And that, it just leads to all sorts of complications. So I'll leave that point. One other point, and I was trying to find the exact language in the Indiana Election Administrator's Guide, but Indiana election law requires that all clerks submit results to the Secretary of State on a periodic basis after close of polls. And I don't know what maybe Ms. Ferris can tell us what that is, but I believe it's either at close of polls and or then every 2 hours. And so there's already going to be an effort to provide those to the Secretary of State, if I'm not mistaken. And so in that same periodicity, you could provide those to those who are interested in this data. And I believe that's all I have to offer right now, but I would like to follow up with the working group
All right, thank you.
in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions up there, or at least hands raised. So I'll just bring it back. I mean, you know, I'm comfortable with, you know, David's recommendation that we do the hybrid approach this year just to cover our bases and make sure that we're getting results out in case there are any glitches that happen, and that we would just be clear that the reporting that's going out, we would be doing the CSV data and the PDF at the same time, so that we're not, you know, creating additional periods of crazy activity for the workforce. But you'll need to yeah, and we'll also make sure that we have the disclaimers on the dashboards and some of those other checks, and just stay close with us. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, look, the bottom line is this is the Monroe County.
Test, it's a pilot.
Yeah, it's a pilot. It's also the Monroe County government. This is the font of the information. It is, you know, a third-party vendor or other people creating their own dashboards on social media or whatever is not official stuff. I mean, this is the government saying what's going on. So I'm fine with all that. I know we got off into another space, but I'll just say on that you know, I think as we've discovered over the years, there's some things that have happened by custom in our elections here that need to be codified and turned into policy. And so that's a discussion, obviously, that isn't this meeting today. But if what was customary now needs to be written down as to who gets what and when and how, what statutorily you're obligated to report and when, as opposed to I want it, you know, as a customer service behavior, like just get that worked out. But for the purpose of this meeting, yeah, I have nothing more to say. I'm excited about what's been built, and this is a very confident product. It's really great. This is going to be great.
Kylie, any other thoughts?
The only I'm just kind of confused with, because I thought it was an election board working group, and then I realized that it wasn't. But at the last meeting that we had, did we delegate, well, not we, did the election board delegate the reporting to clerk at that last meeting in the policy that was created?
I was looking for the minutes and that resolution, and they're not online.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because I thought it was voted on at that meeting.
What was voted on at the meeting is that we were not going to approve a contract with Ann Island.
With a third, right. But I thought...
And that we were going to convene a working group to consider the alternatives.
Okay.
thank you for pulling this together on a Friday.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Can I add one thing too? I'm not sure if am I on? You guys can hear me anyways. Yeah, my one thing was I just need to make sure that we have like coordinated a coordinated process of how the data will be coming to GIS. So if that's through Bob and me, that's perfectly fine, or Kylie and I. But yeah, I'll just be in my office and I'll have my phone and I can walk over. It's a couple blocks away. I'll have plenty of coffee and cheeseburgers or something. And then the second thing I wanted to mention was that I think that this data is so rich and it's so important for the public, and this is me speaking with Tron as well, that I think it would behoove all of Monroe County if we continue these discussions. And so if we wanted to create like a subcommittee that would be like an election analysis type of committee, I'd be more than happy to kind of coordinate that or do whatever. This is stuff that I'm very passionate about and interested in, so. Yeah.
We appreciate the work you and the team have done to put this together, so thank you. I think with that, we'll be adjourned, and probably need to go have a conversation.